Here we are, finally going into the regular D tier levels to see what type of challenges will be thrown at us. And right off the get-go, we have an interesting level that can be played quite a few different ways. Many routes that we can take to complete our objective, but not all of them need to be visited. It's a classic choose your fate type of level, I suppose you could say. Will you select door number 1 and be faced with, or door number 2, which holds behind it? Or will you be a true madman and take on both? I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. As always, let's start off with your loadout. For this level, I recommend you bring with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, a C-foam launcher, and a burst sentry. The reason I recommend the bio tracker is because 1, the information is always really good to have that the bio tracker provides, but specifically for this level, there's a fair amount of fog in it. There are some zones that have less than ideal lighting in them, so it's pretty hard to see what you're doing, and there are a fair amount of scouts and as well as some birthers, which if you don't kill a birther before it fully wakes up and it fogs up the area, it can be really difficult to deal with it and finish it off before it spawns in more baby strikers. Many different situations throughout this entire level where having the information and the pings of the bio tracker will help out quite a bit, so I would definitely recommend you bring it with you. When it comes to the mine deployer and the C-foam launcher, these are going to be sort of our primary means of dealing with most of the alarm doors in this level. Not every single alarm door will be able to take advantage of the mine deployer and C-foam launcher, but the ones that we can, they will help out a lot in preserving our HP and our ammunition for later when we really need it. That, and there are quite a few charger scouts in this level, and while you can stealthily deal with them as long as you have 2 people with sledgehammers or spears that are coordinated and have good synergy, if that synergy doesn't really exist, it can be pretty awkward to try to kill them. So having the C-foam launcher, that way you can freeze them in place and more safely kill them, can help you avoid a pretty sticky situation. And then finally, when it comes to the burst sentry, for this level, I want a sentry that has a bit of killing power, but also has a pretty decent rate of fire, which is literally what the burst sentry is meant for. We aren't going to be putting a lot of tool refill into the burst sentry. Most of it will be going into the mine deployer and C-foam launcher, so we don't want to take the auto sentry necessarily because it goes through ammunition very quickly and requires a fair amount of tool refill to consistently be effective. And we don't really want the sniper sentry because even though it's very ammo efficient when it comes to tool refill and kills, it has a slow rate of fire, and a lot of the enemies we'll be dealing with in this level are chargers, which are a bit faster than typical enemies. So the sniper sentry has a little bit of difficulty actually picking off multiple of them during an alarm before they get out of its range of fire. So I find that the burst sentry is sort of the most effective sentry for this level. Although you can definitely take auto sentry or sniper sentry, you just have to play around it a little bit differently. Dropping down to the level, you'll see that your main objective is to extract data keys at 9 different terminals, but there's actually a total of 12 of them that you can collect them from. So there are more terminals in the level that you need, which means you don't actually have to go to every single zone in the level to complete the main objective. Even then though, I will be talking about every single zone in this guide, but to keep things a little bit simple, I will be talking about my ideal route that I like to take to complete both the main objective and the extreme objective. And then once we finish all that and we get to extraction, I will quickly go back and talk about the other routes that I did not cover. That way, if you disagree with me or maybe you think you want to try the other routes besides the one that I recommend, you have the information you need to have a little bit of a smoother time with it. Starting off though, you'll find yourself inside zone 192. And in here, you will immediately find a terminal that has a key on it, so this will be your first one out of 9, and you'll be able to find 3 security doors. One to the west, which is zone 193, one to the north, which is zone 196, and one to the east, which is zone 194. You'll also be able to find a generator inside the room that you need to repower in order to gain access to that northern security door to 196. And you can find a power cell in both the western route and the eastern route. So right off the bat, you have a choice of which way you want to go. But I would highly recommend that you go to zone 193 to the west first, because doing this will make the upcoming alarm door a little bit easier to do. So once you've collected all the resources and killed off all the enemies in 192, head over to the west and do the full team scan to the security door to zone 193. Once you finish the full team scan and you open up the security door, I recommend you back up to the ladder that's very close to the security door and climb up it and then wait up there. Because inside zone 193 there are going to be a lot of baby strikers as well as a birther that are going to automatically wake up shortly after the door is opened. So wait at the top of the ladder, that way you have a nice little funnel point where all the babies will come straight to you. And then once you finish them all off, tag the Bertha with the bio tracker and then back up a little bit and wait for her to get close to you. You don't necessarily need to wait for her to leave the room and come out to you, but as long as she's close enough to it that you can rush in there and get on top of her within a second, you are good. Because you cannot get a C-foam grenade before this point, and trying to C-foam a Bertha with a C-foam launcher is a little bit iffy since she is going to be moving around a bit and takes more than one full charge to do it, you're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, which is rush in, she'll see you, she'll start birthing. One person on your team with either a pierce weapon like Hell Revolver or Hell Gun, or somebody with weapons that have large magazine sizes should focus on all the babies she spawns in, because she spawns them all in the same spot. So as long as you're just rapid firing in that location, you will kill most, if not every single one of them. Meanwhile, the other 3 people rush up to her and start shooting the tumors and try to finish her off. If you're successful, you'll kill her before she finishes the animation starts running. If not, she'll fog up the area and move away very quickly. If this is the case, no big deal. Make sure you kill all the babies and then just chase after her and shoot her tumors when you get the opportunity to. It might be a little bit difficult unless you could force her into a corner, but if things go real bad, then she'll just start birthing again, which at this point, you just do the same thing again. One person focus on the babies and the other 3 people focus on the tumors, and you should be able to finish her off this time. Once she and all of her babies are dead, you can go throughout the room to collect resources, and in here you'll find 2 more security doors, one to zone 205 and one to zone 206. However, the security door to zone 206 requires a key card, and that key card will always be in 205, so that's the only place you can go to. The security door to zone 205 is going to be a blood door, and this blood door is going to spawn in a crap ton of baby strikers, as well as a fair amount of regular strikers and shooters. So I recommend you place 1 mine on the door, and then when you open it, run all the way back either to the ladder you just used to kill all the baby strikers from earlier, or go up the staircase that's in the room with you and use that as a funnel point. That way you have a much easier time dealing with all these enemies as long as you have pierce weapons, and you don't have to worry nearly as much about being surrounded and getting hit left and right. Once every single enemy is dead though, you can head to 205. In there you will find a terminal with a key on it, so this is going to be your second one. There will be the cell that you need for the generator in zone 192, so you can take that back out and plug it in there. That is the only generator in the level, so you don't need to worry about saving this for later. And you'll also be able to find the key card that you need to get into zone 206. So go in, loot up, get that terminal key, get the key card, get the power cell, take them wherever they need to go, and then you can make your way to the security door to zone 206. The security door to zone 206 is also going to be a blood door, although this one's going to be a little bit different, because instead of spawning in a bunch of babies and regular enemies, it's going to spawn in a few regular strikers and shooters and a fair amount of giant strikers and hybrids. So you can either place 1 mine on this blood door or 2 if you want to weaken the giants a little bit more. Once everything is good, open up the security door, deal with every single one of the enemies, and then you can head into 206. In here, there will never be any resources, but there will be boxes of lockers that can have things like C-foam grenades or fog repellents, so definitely look out for them. And you will also be able to find another terminal with a data key on it, and this is going to be your third one. So go in here, get that terminal, collect anything you can, and then you can head back out into zone 192. Now that we have finished that quadrant of the level, we're going to be making our way to the north to the security door to zone 196, which is going to have a Class T or traveling alarm tied to it. This is basically going to be the ending of R6C1 all over again, although a little bit easier to handle. As you can see with the map overlay, there are only 2 different locations enemies can spawn in, but they all have to go through one central door to get into your room. However, there's not a single door that we can shut, mine, and C-foam, so we're going to have to rely on our gun skills as well as our sentry. Thankfully though, there are ladders on the western side of the room, which are a good funnel point, which is why I recommend you open up the western side first. So what you're going to want to do is place your burst sentry at the base of the ladder, not the one that you funneled up with the baby strikers earlier, but the other one that's a little bit further away from the door. You're just going to place it at the base of it, facing towards the open security door, and that's all you need to do. The burst sentry will weaken and kill a few of the charges that are coming through, and you just have to finish off the rest of them. Once the sentry's in position and everybody's good to go, activate the alarm door, stay in the scan, just follow it throughout the room, focusing on the charges as they come after you. And once you finish the scan, make sure every single one of the enemies are dead, go back and pick up your sentry, and then you can head into zone 196. There is no terminal inside zone 196 that you can get a key from, but there are 2 security doors you can find. One that leads you to zone 198, which is about halfway through the zone, and one to zone 197, which can be found at the far northern end of it. Now, the security door to Zone 197 does have a checkpoint scan on it, and you might be tempted to use it. However, this is the only checkpoint scan for this entire level, so I recommend you save it for a little bit later once you get a bit more progress. So instead, go throughout 196, collect all the resources, kill off all the enemies, and then when you're ready, go to the security door to Zone 198. The door to Zone 198 does have an error alarm tied to it. This error alarm will spawn in 3 chargers roughly every 45 seconds, but there is a terminal that you can use to shut off the error alarm that will always be located inside Zone 200, which is at the end of this quadrant. So I recommend once you are ready to go, you pull the door, do the full team scan, open it up, and rush in immediately. Inside Zone 198, there will be a few charges you have to deal with, there will be some resources you can collect. There is also a terminal with a data key on it, this will be your 4th one. However, since it is off the beaten path, I recommend you just save this for later. Top priority should be shutting off that error alarm first. So you just want to make your way through the zone, get into the second room, in there you'll find security door Zone 199. And this is going to be a class 5 cluster alarm. So let's take a look at the map overlay. As you can see, there's only one room that enemies can spawn in, and there's only one door they have to break down to get into your room, which makes defending against this fairly easy as long as you have enough C-foam. So I recommend once you're ready to activate the alarm, wait for a new wave to spawn in unless one just recently spawned in, go over, deal with them, or shut the door, mine it, C-foam it, then rush over, activate the alarm door, do the full team scan, and then whoever has a C-foam launcher, go over and just keep that door shut for as long as you can. If you've been preserving tool refill up to this point, which I highly recommend you do, you should have no problem keeping this thing shut for pretty much the entire alarm. So 3 people focus on scans, 1 person focuses on keeping the door shut, and once you have hit the 5th sets of scans, you could just let the door break open. Mine will kill most of the enemies, you just finish off the few remainder ones, open up the security door, and you can then rush into Zone 199. Inside of Zone 199, you'll be able to find more chargers, more resources, you'll be able to find another terminal with a data key, this will be your 5th one, but more importantly, at the back end of the zone, you'll be able to find a security door to Zone 200, and this is going to be a blood door. Now, the blood door itself is not too dangerous, but what's inside of Zone 200 is a bit more threatening. In there are usually going to be 4 giant chargers and a charger scout that will be randomly distributed between the 2 rooms. So what I recommend you do is place a mine on the blood door, and then when you open it, run away back to the entrance of the room that you're in, and just hold out there. That way, when more chargers spawn in from the air alarm, you can deal with them from a safer distance, and anything that might survive from the blood door will just rush out to you, and you can shoot them without having to worry about waking up whatever is in the first room of Zone 200. Once you know nothing else is coming from inside 200 after you, you can send 1 person to go in there and just stealth their way through the charger scout and the 4 giant chargers and make it into the second room where you'll be able to find the terminal. If you pull this off successfully, you'll have no issue getting to it, you just deactivate the alarm. Once you see the text at the top of your screen disappear and you hear the music go away, you know that nothing else is still awake and coming after you, and you can take things a bit slower. This terminal that you use to deactivate the air alarm also has a data key on it, so you can collect it from there. This will be your 6th one so far. And there will be probably a fair amount of resources inside Zone 200, 199, and 198 that you did not collect. So at this point, I recommend you go back throughout every single one of the zones, use the terminals, ping wherever the resources are, and collect every single one of the resources you can from these 3 zones. Just be careful of any enemies that might still be alive that you did not finish off. Once you've gotten everything you need from this quadrant of the level, you can head back out into Zone 196, head to the north, and go to the security door to Zone 197. Activate the checkpoint scan, finish that, and then you can make your way into 197 itself. Inside of Zone 197, you'll be able to find another terminal with a data key, so this is going to be your 7th out of 9th one you need, only 2 left to go. And you'll also be able to find your bulkhead door control and doors to the high and extreme objectives, as well as your very first bulkhead key. Be careful though, because there are a fair amount of charger and charger scouts inside the zone, and if you're going for the extreme objective, there are some doors in the zone that you want to make sure you have preserved for that. But once you cleared everything out and you collect all the resources and you got the bulkhead key, you can make your decision. So those of you who are only interested in the main objective portion of this guide and don't want to see extreme whatsoever, jump to the timestamp that you see on screen. There we will continue to talk about how you can get the last 2 terminals you need and how to extract. But if you are somebody who does care about extreme, put the bulkhead key into the door control, select your extreme objective, and then meet me over by the bulkhead door to Zone 363, and we'll head right on in, as that bulkhead door is just an open door with no scan tied to it whatsoever. Upon entering into Zone 363, you'll see that your extreme objective is to find a specific terminal and create an uplink at it. However, this is not your typical uplink terminal like you might have experienced in R6D2's Extreme Objective. This is actually a 2-person uplink, and both of the terminals that you need will be located inside Zone 363. However, one of those 2 terminals is going to be password locked, and the terminal that has the password you need will always be located inside Zone 366. Inside Zone 363, you'll be able to find 3 security doors. One to the west, which leads you to 364, one to the north, which leads you to Zone 365, and one to the east that leads you to Zone 366. Now, immediately you might think, let's head to 366, that way we can get that password and we can get started with the uplink. However, there is an alarm tied to that security door, and the room you're in right now has a lot of infectious fog in it. So I would actually recommend you head to the west first and go to Zone 364, because inside that zone, you can find a terminal that you can use to purify all the fog in the level, which not only will help make that 366 alarm door easier, as well as the uplink itself easier to do, it will also make getting the last 2 terminals you need for the main objective easier to do, as we are going to be heading back to a zone that has a lot of fog inside of it. So go to Zone 364 first. This is going to be a blood door, so place 2 mines on it, because most of the enemies that spawn from this blood door are going to be giants. So the mines will deal with all the regular chargers that spawn in and some of the giants, but there's still going to be a lot of leftover, so make sure you're ready for a bit of a gunfight going into this. Once all those giants are dead though, you can head into Zone 364. At the far back end of it, you will find a terminal that you can use to purify all the fog in the level. Key thing is you're purifying it, you're not removing it, so there still will be fog, but it won't infect you, and it's actually a bit easier to see through, so this is going to make things a bit easier for your team. Once you finish dealing with everything 364, you can head to the eastern side and go back to the security door 366 and get ready to deal with that, because that is going to be a class 4 mixed alarm. However, even though this is an alarm door, I actually don't need to show a map overlay. And the reason for that is because every enemy that spawns in during this alarm is going to be a flyer, and they actually spawn in the room with you right above you in the ceiling portion. So what you're going to want to do is place your sentry on the staircase a little bit to the south of the security door 366, facing out towards the middle of the room. That way your burst sentry is at a higher elevation and can target some of the flyers going around and actually shoot them down. As for you and your team, I would recommend you sort of split up into 2 groups. 2 people who are going to focus primarily on shooting the flyers and not so much on the scans, and 2 people who are going to focus primarily on doing the scans and not so much on shooting the flyers. This alarm door can be pretty difficult since it spawns in a lot of flyers all at once, but if you could just focus on thinning their numbers out a bit and just making sure that they don't stockpile up way too much, you won't really have too much trouble with it. This room does have a fair amount of cover in it, and sometimes your scans will go into that cover, sometimes your scans will go out in the open, but as long as you're working together and keeping the number of flyers fairly low, you won't have too much trouble dealing with these scans. Just make sure you're side strafing a bit when you're on the scans, that way you're not getting hit as often, and once you get every single set of scans done, you just have to finish off the rest of the flyers, and then you're in the clear. In a 366, you'll be able to find not only that terminal that has the password that you need for the uplink terminal, but you will also find quite a few resources which will help out quite a bit with the upcoming uplink. So once you have everything you need in here, head back out and we can start preparing for the uplink terminal. As you can see with the map overlay, there are 5 different rooms that enemies can spawn in, which means 5 different doors that they can break down to get to you and your team, which can either be a good thing for you or it could be a bad thing depending on how much tool you still have up to this point. If you've been conservative, then you might find yourself in a situation where you can mine and seafoam all 5 of those doors. If not, though, then you're going to have to compromise a little bit. I would definitely recommend that bare minimum you place a mine on all 5 of those doors, and then seafoam as many of them as you can. Either fully seafoam 2 or 3 of them, or just do half charge of seafoam on them. That way every single door has some seafoam to reinforce it a bit, it's just not fully reinforced. You could also put some tool refill into your burst sentry, but in all honesty, I find the mines and seafoam to be a lot more valuable than it, so only put tool refill into the burst sentry if you fully mine and seafoam all 5 doors already. And then when it comes to you and your team, you're going to have 2 people at each terminal. 1 person from each group actually being on the terminals and doing the work they need to do, the other 2 people just being there to defend them against the hordes of enemies that will be coming after them. Because during this uplink, you can expect to see not only chargers spawning in, but also a few flyers every once in a while, and those flyers are going to be spawning directly above you, just like they did for the previous alarm door. So set up your mines and seafoam the best you can. If you do have ammunition left in that sentry, place it in a location where it can help defend one of the 2 teams, and then once everybody's ready to go, activate the uplink and get to work on it. The doors will buy you a fair amount of time, but it's not going to buy you enough time to the point where you won't have to shoot whatsoever, since there are 5 codes you have to do in total for this uplink. So do your best to stay alive and get that done. Once the 5th code has been put in, no more additional enemies will spawn in, but you are not quite out of the clear yet, because once that uplink finishes, the security door to zone 365 is going to automatically open up. And inside of 365, not only is there your second bulkhead key that you need, but there is also going to be a tank that will automatically wake up shortly after the door opens up fully. So for the 2 people who are next to the terminal next to that door, once you finish the uplink, run away from that door and join up with your 2 teammates. Then all 4 of you work together to deal with any chargers or flyers that are still alive, and once they are all dead, then you can get to the work on the tank that will be coming after you. Just make sure that wherever you're holding out, it doesn't rush up on you and corner you, because then you're going to be in a bit of an awkward situation. This room is quite nice for dealing with the tank, as you do have a bit of high ground as well as some cover that you can get behind that we can safely shoot it and duck behind cover if need be. So once he is dead, you can head into 365, collect any goodies you might find in there as well as the second bulkhead key, and once you are done with all that, you can head back out into zone 197 and head back to the bulkhead door control. Alright, back to the main objective. So we have our bulkhead key, we're going to put it into the door control and select our main objective. We only have 2 terminals left that we need to collect. However, before we make our way back to collecting those 2 terminals, we want to go to the security door to zone 204 that we just unlocked by using that bulkhead key. This is just going to be a full team scan, and zone 204 itself is going to be where your extraction zone is. There will be no terminals in here, there will be no resources in here. However, there is going to be a charger scout that you want to get rid of now, since if something goes wrong when you collect the last 2 codes and you need to make your way back here really quickly, you don't have to worry about running headfirst into a charger scout on the way out. So open up the zone, deal with the charger scout first. There are boxes and lockers in here, so you might get lucky and get some C-foam grenades, but once you're done in here, you're going to want to backtrack all the way to the beginning of the level again and go to the security door to zone 194. The reason why we're doing it like this is because zone 194 has a lot of infectious fog inside of it, which can make it a bit difficult to traverse. However, now that we have finished the extreme objective, that infectious fog has been purified, and while it is still there, it is a bit easier to see through and it's not going to give us infection. However, if you're somebody who is only doing the main objective, this isn't the case for you, but there are still a fair amount of fog repellers throughout the level that you can use to disperse the fog to traverse through here a bit safer. So go back to the security door, do the full team scan that's tied to it, and then you can open it up. Inside zone 194, there are usually about 6 giant chargers that are split between the first and the second room. The second room will also have a crap ton of spitters all along the wall. There will also be a fog turbine in here that you could use, although this is sort of situational. Sometimes I find myself not needing it, other times it could be a bit helpful. Again, it's up to you and your team and how you've done the level. So I would recommend you go in, pull the giant chargers, unless you do have a melee weapon combination where you can safely deal with them stealthily. Get rid of all the giant chargers throughout the zone, then make your way to the back end of it where you'll find the security door to zone 195. The security door to zone 195 is going to be a class 3 alarm door, and every single scan is going to be a full team scan. And as you can see with the map overlay, there's only one location that enemies can spawn from, and no matter what, they will always go for this door right here, unless if you have the other door left open. So as long as both of them are shut, they will always go for this door right here. So once you're ready to deal with this alarm door, I recommend you mine and C-foam that door, and then place your burst sentry down in the room with you, facing towards that door. Now, because every single one of these scans is a full team scan, you're sort of relying a little bit on RNG when it comes to if you can actually re-C-foam that door or not. If you're on the clear opposite side of the room doing a full team scan and you hear the door getting broken down, you're not really going to be able to run over there and re-C-foam it with a grenade or the launcher without wasting valuable time. However, if you are nearby it and you see that's about to break down, you could quickly step out of the scan and re-C-foam the door. So depending on your scan RNG, work accordingly, that way you maximize efficiency. Once you finish all 3 sets of scans though and all the enemies are dead, you can head into zone 195. Inside of zone 195, there are 2 terminals, both of them having keys on them, so this will be your 8th and your 9th final data key that you need to complete the main objective. However, this room is guarded by 6 charger scouts, and because it's all one big room, if you wake up one of them, you wake up every single one of them, which could be pretty devastating. Or is it? Because with the method I taught you, this is actually all trivialized. Because if you think about it, there are no full team scans left in the level. You are in the final room you need to go to for your data keys, and the room with your extraction scan in it has already been opened up. So all you need to do after you finish this alarm door and open up the door to 195 is send 2 or 3 people back to zone 204 where they just wait for the extraction scan to appear, and then the leftover people just go into 195 and do their best to stealth up to the terminals. Because even if they mess it up and they wake up the charger scouts, they have enough time to run up to the terminals and extract the data keys from them before the chargers finish their screaming animation and actually go back to the point where they try to attack you. And even then, the waves of chargers that spawn in aren't going to have enough time to actually make it all the way to the people in 204 to kill them before the extraction circle hits 100%. So if you want to play it really safe, just have 2 or 3 people go back to 204 and then 1 or 2 people go in and do their best to get the keys without waking up the room. Or if you really just can't be bothered, just full send it and book it straight to the terminals and wake up anything that gets in your way, and you'll be completely fine. These are the last keys you need, and once that extraction circle gets up to 100%, you are done and you have beaten R6D2. But even though you are done with the level, we are not quite done with this level guide, because there's still a quadrant of the level I have not gone over yet, specifically the quadrant consisting of zone 201, 202, and 203, which is very, very dangerous. I would not recommend you pretty much ever go into this quadrant unless if you're just trying to challenge yourself, or you're in a situation where you literally don't have the resources to go into any of the other quadrants because of their alarm doors. And even then, you need to be very careful back here. All 3 of these zones are very similar to each other. They are very dark with either no or very little lighting in them. They are jam-packed filled with enemies like regular strikers, shooters, chargers, but more importantly, charger scouts and birthers. And one tiny mistake will wipe your team very quickly, because there aren't many rooms to these zones. And every zone has around 2 to 3 charger scouts and 1 to 2 birthers. So if you wake up any room, you are almost guaranteed to be waking up at least 1 charger scout and 1 birther, as well as probably a good 10 enemies. So I recommend play it very slow and cautiously. Work around the biotracker since they know exactly where every single enemy is located. If you have C-foam, use it to deal with the charger scouts if they are isolated and you can safely kill them. If something goes wrong, get out of this segment as fast as you can into a more well-lit area like 197. And because you also have doors back there that you can mine in C-foam if need be, and just be very cautious. This area is dangerous, but the pro to it is the fact that you don't have to spend any resources. The security door to 201 is just a full team scan, 202 is just a class 3 stealth scan, and zone 203 is a class 2 stealth scan, so you don't have to spend any ammunition to get past these security doors. And there are also a total of 3 terminals back here. There will never be any terminals in 201, there will be 2 terminals inside of zone 202, and 1 terminal inside of zone 203. Zone 202 can be found connected to the first room of 201, and 203 can be found connected to the second room of 201. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have to be back here, just play it slow, be very careful. I really don't have any sage-like advice to be able to get through here more easily, because in all honesty, I think I would rather deal with any of the other quadrants melee only than trying to deal with this place. But no matter what, whatever combination or routes you take to get all 9 of the terminals, once you have every single one of them and that extraction scan appears, you can go over to it and hop into it. It is a quick extraction scan, there are no enemies that will spawn in because of it, and once you get that extraction scan up to 100%, you are done and you have truly beaten R6D2. And that's all there is to it. Just like always, if you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you want to say, leave it down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, then consider hitting that like button. It helps out the channel and it helps these videos get noticed by people who really need them. And while you're down there, you might as well hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notified whenever I post a new video. I also have my own Discord server, so if you want to go the extra mile and become part of the community I'm building, hop right on in. Link is down in the description. Also in the description, you can find a link that will take you to the official GTFO merch store. So if you love this game and want to pick up some sweet looking merch, go take a look and see what they've got for you. Until next time, don't forget that a hug a day will keep the Charger Scouts away, and I'll see you all in the next video.